Phillip Schofield didn't want him to reveal to anybody the relationship.
But that's a very different issue. That's a very different matter.
Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we'll be looking at 10 times the government got involved with TV scandals.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
For this list, we're looking at controversies on the small screen that got so big the government had to step in.
A former participant told the committee about his experience on the programme and how it had a negative impact on his life.
Let us know in the comments which of these you followed as they happened. Top Gear Mexico controversy. Much of Top Gear's appeal lay in its refusal to be politically correct. But while that won it a lot of popularity here, in other countries that wasn't to be the case.
Mexican car's just going to be a lazy, feckless, flatulent open that stops. Leaning against a fence asleep, looking at a cactus with a blanket with a hole in the middle on as a coat.
Some comments Clarkson, May and Hammond made about Mexico, including comparing Mexican food to refried sick, rubbed the Mexican ambassador to the UK the wrong way, and he filed a complaint to the BBC.
They can't do food, the Mexicans, can they? Because it's all like sick with cheese on it.
Technically, this was the Mexican government involved in a scandal, though Ofcom did get involved, investigating the show, and it was later talked about in Have I Got News For You. Even Steve Coogan didn't think Top Gear's attitude was very funny.
Just imagine waking up and remembering you're Mexican.
That'd be brilliant. It'd be brilliant because you could just go straight back to sleep again.
Gary Lineker. This was a controversy that started because of the government. But in 2023, Gary Lineker compared the Tory government's treatment of refugees to 1930s Germany, landing him in hot water with the Beeb.
Rishi Sunak told the House of Commons that only the Conservatives would stop the boats.
He was suspended from Match of the Day, but then all his colleagues also walked out over the same weekend, leaving Match of the Day to be hosted by nobody.
The BBC says it'll have a frank conversation with Match of the Day presenter Gary Lineker.
The incident was debated by politicians on Question Time, with many pointing out that the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, was a former Tory politician, and one MP claiming Match of the Day was better without any presenters. A Labour MP even said that the crackdown on Lineker reminded her of Putin's Russia.
Well, this morning, Mr Lineker has been tweeting again, saying he would continue to try and speak up for those poor souls that have no voice.
Cliff Richard raid.
A small convoy of unmarked police cars arrived mid-morning.
In 2014, Sir Cliff Richard's house was raided by police because of historic abuse allegations. No evidence to support these allegations was ever found, but the BBC still opted to live broadcast the raid in its entirety from a helicopter on television.
From the air, though, the cars could be seen as they parked and as the police team made its way towards the empty apartment owned by Sir Cliff Richard.
Because of this, the BBC was eventually brought before a select committee for Home Affairs on suspicion of corruption, the issue being why the Beeb knew about a police raid so far ahead of time that it could send a helicopter along.
The investigation is linked to an alleged incident that took place in the county back in the 1980s.
South Yorkshire Police was also investigated, and the BBC was called utterly inept by Labour MP Keith Vaz, who helmed the committee. Cliff Richard later successfully sued the BBC over the incident for £2 million.
It was incredibly emotional for me to think that after 3 years, 11 months and 4 days, it's really finally over.
Gaza appeal. Also in 2014, and both the BBC and Sky found themselves in trouble for refusing to broadcast an appeal for aid to be sent to Gaza, created by the Disaster Emergency Committee.
Military conflict has been taking a devastating toll on a densely populated area.
While other broadcasters aired the appeal just fine, those two initially refused, presumably out of fear for being seen as biased in the Israel-Palestine conflict.
The conflict means that the people of Gaza are in great need.
But when even the government of Israel believed aid should go to Gaza at the time, the BBC's initial refusal to air the appeal seemed even stranger.
That's why the Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, an umbrella organisation that unites 13 UK humanitarian aid agencies, has launched an emergency appeal.
Multiple cabinet ministers and MPs were against the BBC's decision here, saying so publicly, and both broadcasters eventually backtracked. Sachsgate. This technically happened on the radio, but did involve multiple TV stars and attracted a lot of attention.
I am the news, I am the news tonight. I am the news, I am the news tonight.
During a broadcast on Radio 1, Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross made a now infamous prank call to actor Andrew Sachs, in which Brand boasted about sleeping with his granddaughter.
I said some things I didn't have oughta, like I had sex with your granddaughter.
The whole thing was extremely juvenile, but incurred a lot of wrath from both the public and Westminster, and Brand essentially found himself blackballed from British media for a while, though Ross's career survived. Thousands complained to Ofcom, and the very same day Gordon Brown spoke out against Brand and Ross, with other MPs demanding they get the sack.
Inappropriate and unacceptable. Now Gordon Brown joins the chorus of disapproval against Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross.
Libyan raid controversy.
It was called Operation El Dorado Canyon. The attack on Libya almost 24 hours ago has left many Libyans dead or injured.
Yet another scandal courtesy of the BBC. This happened all the way back in 1986, when America conducted large numbers of airstrikes in Libya, still under the control of Colonel Gaddafi at the time.
The attack has had an effect on American-Soviet relations. And today, in a challenge which proved ineffective, the Libyans attempted to hit back.
As it was a major news story, the BBC reported on it, only to earn the ire of Margaret Thatcher, Norman Tebbit, and many other high-ranking Tories. It was thought that the BBC was too biased against America this time, and should have featured more perspectives on the raid from British and American military officials. An investigation was even ordered by the government, but the BBC didn't pay them any notice.
Tonight, the Libyans thought they were under attack again. It wasn't us, said the Reagan administration. But there was a lot of Libyan shooting into the dark night sky.
Celebrity Big Brother. Sachsgate wasn't the only scandal Gordon Brown had to answer for. He also had to make public comments about the notorious Celebrity Big Brother race row from Series 5. Contestant Jade Goody and her family had been making racist comments about Shilpa Shetty. Brown was Chancellor at the time and on a diplomatic trip to India, which meant he was grilled on the ongoing controversy by Indian journalists. He went as far as to say the public ought to vote Jade Goody out. Ministers in India's parliament were also involved in commenting, with officials even writing an open letter to Goody about what she'd said. Love Island.
One reality show that has also come under scrutiny is ITV's Love Island. 2 former contestants took their own lives after taking part in the show.
The Culture Department launched another inquiry into reality TV back in 2019 following the tragic death of Caroline Flack. Flack was one of multiple people connected to Love Island to have taken their own lives. But there actually had already been government inquiries into Love Island following the 2 previous deaths, those of Sophie Graydon and Mike Thalasitis, and it hadn't done a good enough job to prevent what happened to Flack.
However, it did prompt calls to look at the aftercare that's received.
Some Love Islanders even gave evidence before MPs. Years on, and the conversation around safeguarding in television, particularly ITV, continues, and the government has been called out by the families of those who died for its inaction.
In a statement, ITV said it takes its responsibilities around duty of care to participants very seriously. The inquiry continues.
Jeremy Kyle. The same inquiry that investigated Love Island was also investigating The Jeremy Kyle Show as part of a wider look at ITV's safeguarding measures. And it was Steve Diamond's very tragic death that was the final straw for the inquiry, which was launched shortly afterwards.
Everyone at ITV and The Jeremy Kyle Show is shocked and saddened at the news of the death of a participant in the show, and our thoughts are with their family and friends.
But it wasn't the inquiry itself that finally got Jeremy Kyle cancelled. Initially, ITV only suspended production, but the government, from backbenchers to Downing Street, thought the show should be axed completely because of how it operated.
It has a reputation for confrontation and controversy where participants face off to air their most personal problems.
In the end, the government got its wish. Kyle himself refused to appear before MPs and give any evidence, however.
In the same year, a Manchester judge likened the show to bear baiting after sentencing a man for assaulting another guest on stage.
Phillip Schofield.
I've never called it an investigation. I actually said to the
I heard you say that, but then you subsequently used the word investigate.
I might have said investigated.
In 2023, Phillip Schofield spectacularly resigned from This Morning and then days later revealed in the Daily Mail that ongoing rumours about him having an affair with a much younger runner were true.
The words used were, "Is everything okay between you and Phillip?" Those were the words used. And he didn't, I'm told, feel that he could really answer that with any candour.
A media storm ensued, with Schofield giving a 45-minute interview to the BBC and Holly Willoughby calling him a liar when she returned to the show. But many thought the whole thing had been blown way out of proportion, and the circumstances around Scof's departure was so shady that the CEO of ITV got brought before MPs about it. She denied that ITV's management had been enabling Schofield's behaviour, but Ofcom is going to conduct an investigation.
But I want to be very clear that it's Phillip that was putting him under pressure and not ITV that was putting him under pressure, because they're two quite separate things.